Now let's look into the Mississippian culture of these Hibiru or Hebrew Native Americans that were here before the Sephardim and the French came over. Now, the reason I say Hibiru is because all natives are not Israelites, just like all Hibiru were not. You had Hebrew Israelites, Hebrew Edomites, Hebrew Ishmaelites. You also began to have some Phoenicians, some Canaanites, as well as some Syrians and some Babylonians that kept the same practices. Now, they began to hold something called the Green Corn Festival. This was the beginning of their new year. This was basically some Hebraic markers in comparison to the biblical Sukkot. When you begin to look into the biblical calendar, specifically if you look into the oral tradition, this will begin to explain why there is an ecclesiastical calendar as well as a civil calendar. So these Native Americans would start off this about 5 day, week long festival with fasting as they build up their booths. Okay, and they begin to drink these herbal teas to purify themselves. Now, if you guys began to look into the Old Testament, there was something that a woman would begin to drink to purify herself from the curse of jealousy if her husband thought that she committed adultery. These are Hebraic markers. So when the Sephardic Jews and the French Jews and the Dutch began to come into the Mississippian culture, they actually kept these festivals together. Now, when the Catholics came in and began to propagate what it is that their agenda was, there was some bloodshed that took place. But what we have to begin to do is remove the misnomers and begin to realize when the Hebrews dwelled amongst one another, they all began to pick the corn. The natives picked the corn and they left out in the fields for the Sephardim and for the Jews. We see the same custom practice in the book of Ruth. This was the time of the judges. These were pre-exilic practices. But we also have to remember that the Sephardim and the French Jews, a lot of them were keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments. So if they began to see the Hebrew Native Americans worship Yahweh as well as venerate other deities, then you would ensue indentured servitude amongst Hebraic groups of people. Let's study and learn together. Comment down below and let me know, have you ever heard about this?